We're going to be talking about training for women over 40 because I can't do the Instagram live off my Estrogen Project account. I'm using my personal account, and I have invited Miss Taylor Rose to come talk about this. Um, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Tiana McKenzie, formerly Tiana Ringer. I'm a physical therapist. I am dually licensed in Canada as well as the United States in California, where I live now in Huntington Beach. And I've developed something called the Estrogen Project. And this is for women over 40, so in the perimenopause, menopause transition, that could also be because of surgical reasons, um, to understand exactly what's going on in their bodies, what's changing, and oh, Miss Taylor is unable to join. Hold on. What's changing and what to do about it. So I'm going to be trying to get, I think this worked with BLD education. I'm trying to wait for them to join. There we are, Taylor. So I tried adding your personal account because BLD education wasn't coming up, but I
Oh,
think I just needed to give it some time. It's been some time since I've done an Instagram live.
sometimes since we've all done an Instagram live.
I know. I'm surprised I found the button. It's for those young
Well,
whippersnappers. So I was just introducing myself because I haven't been on Instagram Live in a long time. And this is now on my personal account, not on the Estrogen Project, where I do want women to go follow or anyone interested in learning about women's health. I'm going to just segue here. I'm wearing my headset because I have a very loud dog, and this is right at the time that deliveries are being made at the house. So chaotic barking may occur in the next little bit.
nothing we can't handle.
Yes, yes. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. So how are things over with BLD education? Why don't you, so I just introduced what the Estrogen Project is for women going through perimenopause and menopause, and why are we talking today?
Yeah, I think for BLD education, we're trying to expand the different coaches that we currently have within the network, and then trying especially hard to fill the gaps where people are needing more help in terms of expertise. So we're doing a full relaunch of the app probably in the next month or so, and it's going to have a whole array of different offerings, like a in addition to the support network that's already been developed. So I think part of doing that is, again, there's a huge gap in women's health and figuring out how to navigate clients that have or are experiencing menopause and perimenopause symptoms. And I think you're the perfect person to have explain that. So
Amazing. Yes.
yeah.
So part of what I do is, helping coaches, um, because I dive so much into the science and I apply that to my clients, whether physical therapy clients. I still work with professional athletes who aren't women in menopause, and so I get to work with a different array of people. And so understanding, also being a woman who's 40, who's, starting perimenopause, I get to understand what's going on. And I think that's wonderful. I am part of the BLD. I get to see some of the back end stuff as it's being creative, which is wonderful. Um, Definitely, if you're a coach out there who's looking for this type of support from experts, it is a platform to go and check out. And so, since we're talking about coaching and training for women is such a hot topic, one of the big things that I continuously come across in my practice that I'd love to talk about with what you're doing is how it may seem so incredibly defeating for women who are training, who may not be getting the results they want, who feel like they're doing everything. Maybe they've learned to do a certain type of cardio, or maybe they're going to their Pilates or yoga classes, or maybe they're trying to kick it up a notch and do HIIT training, so high intensity interval training. And yet sometimes, well, often, I'll use more often than not, they feel like it's just not working. Nothing's working. Something's missing. And so they go to their healthcare provider and they're hesitant to start hormones, but their healthcare provider may or may not recommend hormones. And a big problem here is not all women are necessarily candidates for hormone therapy,
Mm.
depending on their health history. So with what I'm seeing, curious to know maybe on your end what some of the questions coaches have had that pertain to that have been.
I think a lot of it probably comes from like they just don't know how to navigate people who are so gung ho on like taking GLP-1s is my answer, right? Like this is such a huge, everyone is seeing incredible results with this. Obviously it's going to work for me.
Yeah,
And it means I
peptides.
don't have to do B, right? Like I can go down this route. I don't necessarily have to go down this route. Not the case, right? Not the
Yeah,
case. And it's very hard to convince someone who is seeing it online everywhere that this is not the answer because there are going to be repercussions in the long run. We just don't know what those are yet, right? Like
yeah.
a lot of people don't know what those are yet. So I think figuring out a way and helping coaches navigate the conversation to have with their client in terms of like what is actually happening in your body that you can actually do to change what's happening and the symptoms that you're experiencing that aren't necessarily down a medicated route, you know?
Right,
Um,
right. Not taking maybe hormones or peptides or these external exogenous substances. It's kind of like there's this view I find that that's it. After 40, it's just going to get worse, or 50 or 60, whatever. That whenever that woman hits that peak, if, I find that she feels like, well, things just aren't working, so I got to go try this other thing. And what I find understanding, going through the science and all the testing that I've been exposed to and the people I've been exposed to, is that unfortunately, a lot of women at that age are just not doing the right things for their body based on the changes that have occurred. And so cellular function has changed. The loss of estrogen is affecting cellular function. And so estrogen is a hormone that everyone has in their body. And as it starts to fluctuate in perimenopause, so it's not as um, balanced or it's not it's more erratic. We're seeing that the cells are not behaving the same way. So we're getting shifts in metabolism, not necessarily a reduction in metabolism, but shifts in terms of how your body is using energy, producing energy, how it's able to break down energy, so digestion.
yeah,
And so the training based on energy supply and demand has to match that and has to match these energy fluxes that are happening in the cells. And there are ways, and it's stated in science and in research to do that to help train the cells. And a great example of that is so we can talk about some of the weight gain that happens. And we know that estrogen affects mitochondria. So without getting too much into what mitochondria are, that means it's going to affect how your body burns fat as fuel for women. And so that is a very important source for anyone who's training for their body to be able to burn fat as fuel. So um, the biggest thing I see is that the training that women are doing are not supporting helping your cells learn to do that again. How do we help our cells learn to burn fat as fuel if we're losing that protective hormone estrogen?
yeah.
What else can we do? And this is where I think it's a perfect symbiotic like relationship and discussion for coaches and with coaches.
Yeah, yeah. So what is it? Because I know what you're offering, but tell everybody else, one person that's watching, what you're offering and kind of what that looks like in terms of women, right? And
Yeah,
what they can do to change and to
yeah.
make a difference.
So it's not one thing, it's everything. It's all
It's
the
everything.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more you go down the rabbit hole, the more you see it's like everything matters. Everything affects everything else. And what I focused on with the Estrogen Project, I started getting into fascia about a decade ago. And understanding how fascia works in the body and how it connects to absolutely everything has changed how I see it and what I want to offer for women who age, because you lose estrogen, fascia changes, movements change, you feel worse, brain fog. Um, you feel like your metabolism is shifting. You feel like there's this weight gain out of nowhere, no matter what you do. And so it really is hitting it from what I would say is the lowest hanging fruit, which is how do we impact how we feel in our bodies first
Mhm.
by moving differently, by helping our fascia move better. Because I know I started this talk talking about fat loss, fat utilization, so lipids in the body. Uh, but if we're not feeling good, if we're cognitively not feeling well, we don't really want to work out. So where
Mhm.
can we start? We can start with the lowest hanging fruit. How do we get our joints, our bodies to actually physically feel better? Well, we do that with certain movements that help mobilize our fascia. We do it through loading techniques, specific loading, which is, weightlifting, and with varying intensity and good form to bring back the fluidity within our joints so that pains go away. And then we can start implementing other movements and other exercises that help to train ourselves to do things like walking. And so it's a program that touches on all of these points that have to do with first how a woman feels in her body as hormones are changing, to cognitively how is she feeling, so brain fog, concentration, to then, okay, what can we do to support all of that? And we look at things like how you're sleeping.
Yeah.
We talk about what you're eating and how that's impacting your body, what exercises you're doing, because guess what? That HIIT training based on what you're eating and how you're sleeping could actually be making things worse.
Mm.
Maybe the type of training that's necessary is still resistance training, but with a different sets and rep scheme, meaning that instead of going back to back hitting things really high intensity, we're going to heavy weights, but we're taking rests in between. And that has an impact on our cognition and how our body's able to move. So it's taking all the facets of exercise and teaching women how to move their bodies that is best for them based on where they are at, while hitting on all of these other points. And we do that slowly and based on the program. So we have the foundation project, which is not running right now, but the fascia freedom, which
Mhm.
starts talking about all the basics. And then that's really talking about the fascia, how we're going to start to load the body. It integrates sleep strategies. It integrates the importance of certain types of exercises. And then we move into the body sovereignty program, which is really the deep dive for individualized biochemistry. So going from a group basis or self-led for women who want to come to the website and just take the assessment and understand things for themselves, to working in a group, or also, the fascia freedom, which is online, to also working individually. So that's what I'm doing. And I find that it's definitely necessary, I think anyway, for coaches, because um, the female body, if they don't understand how it's changing, they
Yeah.
could be doing a disservice for their client and not even know it. And not that they want to.
Yeah. And how would you position it? I guess like if you're coming from, because I would say probably about 60 or 70% of the members that we currently have in BLD are male, right? And so
Mhm.
how does a guy approach a female about talking about this stuff that makes them feel comfortable, right? In a way that's not pushy, or you're not oversharing, or you're not trying to pull something that
Yeah.
feels uncomfortable for you, you know?
Right. Well, you need to remember the coach is going to have an expertise that maybe will assume this female client does not, and that is training. And unfortunately, a generality is most women are afraid to lift weights or pick up weights because of the fear that they're going to get big or bulky or extremely muscular. And I like you're. anyone who sees this won't believe me when I say it's not going to happen. You need to be training really, really, really heavy for a very long time and possibly be taking exogenous substances like steroids to get that muscle mass that you are so afraid to gain. Um, and so first talking about the importance of, the training, but I would also say even before that, it's understanding what is it that that client is looking for, because often you don't even need to know all the extras, but maybe understanding that that client might be afraid to get into a gym. And it doesn't have to do with hormones, but it could be this unspoken fear that's been going on for many years of her life. So first it's like, you got to meet that client where they are at and understand exactly what is it that they're looking for. And sometimes what they say they want and what they're doing are literally on opposite ends. And so understanding that, identifying that, I can't tell you is first and foremost the most important thing, because you can have all the information, you can know everything I know. And if you're not doing that, you've lost the client,
Yeah.
because there's got to be some amount of comfort that it's like, okay, maybe my belief can be questioned and maybe it's not necessarily the right belief. And this person is telling me something brand new that I never thought of or didn't know. And then building that trust with them. So even before knowing anything different, it would be that. And then the next part would be you ask the basic questions that you don't need special information for, like how much do you sleep? What's your nutrition like? I'll give you an example. There are women who are entering perimenopause who are just not eating. They're skipping meals all day. And guess what? Their symptoms are worse. And
Yeah.
those same women will go to their doctors and say they need hormone therapy.
Yeah.
But really, or their GI is upset. Yes, digestion can change,
Yeah.
but there are things you can do before all of that, even before knowing any special amount of information that
Yeah.
can help how
Yeah.
you feel.
Yeah. But even, I think even understanding this from a younger point of view, right? Like I'm in my 30s and I still have days where I'll go, I won't eat, right? Like a week. It's like I might eat like one meal a day. And it's just like I'm stressed, I'm overthinking, like I feel fat and like whatever it is, right? It's just like I don't want to eat for some reason. And then you
Mhm.
feel it, right? But if you understand the implications that it's going to have in 10, 20 years, it's like, okay, maybe I should eat.
Yeah,
Like
and it's
I
just
know, right? Because
an
I used to,
apple.
yeah, I used to coach people for sure. Like I understand the importance of eating, but still there's like this overlooming, I don't want to do
Right?
this, right?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
don't I want to do this? I don't understand why I don't want to do this. And so it's definitely difficult to switch the frame of mind. Because if that's coming from someone who understands training and coaching and eating and the importance of it and still happens to me, someone who maybe doesn't have that background as well, it's going to be even harder to change.
Switch. Yeah, yeah. And that's why I find, nutrition was another area that I dove into and I got to train with some of the highest levels in the world, which was great. And the big thing was understanding how nutrition actually works in your body. I've taught many people how it works and have completely changed how they perceive nutrition, because that idea of food has been tied to an identity for
Mhm.
years. And, forget, women going through perimenopause and menopause. Let's talk about women in their 20s and 30s now. So your age group too, where it's like what you are doing now is setting you up for the future.
Yeah.
And, all's not lost if you're doing quote wrong or inappropriately, but there's room to learn, even for women at this age, how to get into the gym, how to eat appropriately, what foods don't bloat them, because there are many times that I've been there too, where you're told you've got to put on protein, you're going to eat whey protein, and I feel bloated as hell, and I retain water, and I gain weight, and it didn't work. But guess what? There are other types of protein you can eat that don't do that, that are
Yeah.
very healthy for your body. But again, like you brought this up, what we're exposed to in the algorithms that we're stuck in don't show us what's good for us. It show us what's popular or what's being talked about right now. So very important to also consider, you know, where someone's at, even for younger women, and then also consider maybe that for the clientele that might be in their 40s and 50s, where did they come from? Like understand where this person's at, because that's like a lifetime of practicing something that, you know, may not necessarily be helping them, but more
Yeah.
so hindering. And
Yeah.
so it's hard for coaches who get expertise in training and a little bit of nutrition and a little bit of this. And now, if you're not a female, but you are a male, understanding that, you know, everyone has certain stereotypes that they grow up with. Males have stereotypes that they grow up with, but being sensitive to that first before bringing out the blazing guns of now we're going to teach you how to train and strength train and whatever. And if your client is there, great, good for you. But approaching it with a little bit of understanding that you may not know what this woman has gone through, ask questions,
Yeah.
and then still your information is good, but maybe being sensitive. I would tell them to keep in mind the sensitivity to things change.
Yeah.
Your digestion changes. You may feel like crap. You may feel more tired, more lethargic. A lot of women don't maybe feel as motivated to go train, or they're feeling self-conscious. And all of those things are okay, but learning how to approach that, I think, is absolutely essential.
Yeah, it's pivotal. I think also I as a coach who might be training, women over 40, how can they approach the fascia stuff on a very kind of basic scale without, sending them to, a physical therapist to get some stuff done? What can they do on the like
Mhm.
level one, right? Level one, level two that they can do with a client, even whether before a session or in terms of recommendations that they can make for their clients. What is some stuff?
Great. So first and foremost, all movement incorporates fascia. So if you're moving, you're using your fascia.
Yeah.
If you have someone, let's talk specifically about like the perimenopause, menopause group. If you have someone in that group who is complaining of shoulder pain, point specific pain, like if it's like a stabbing pain in that area, it is most likely a fascial trigger point tension, tightness around tendons. It's not just the tendon, but the immobility of the fascia. So this lack of lubrication. So things you can do right away. Theraguns actually work. They bring blood flow to the surface. Even better, put whatever it is, if it's a shoulder, in a stretched position, if the client can do that, and then Theragun it. And you might see within like a couple of minutes a massive release of that area. The blood flow that comes there will help the area move better. And all of a sudden, you're in a better pain-free range of motion and you can go about your training. You can also suggest that your client does this before their sessions if that is something that they need. Second to that, um, rolling out, getting on the tight points is more than just 5 minutes of rolling, and use different apparatuses. My personal favorite are the ones that are round that can actually get into the muscle, but then create traction. So I'm not a big fan of foam rollers. I like the rumble roller, but foam rollers, I find they're too big and flat, and it just creates this downward pressure. So even when you roll it, you're often on clothes. So I just don't think it does the same thing that like something that's round will when it presses in. But
Mhm.
definitely, if someone is very sensitive, you can start with a softer, larger foam roller. And that can be done again pre-session as well as post-session doesn't do too much. But pre-session foam rolling, post-session can be helpful depending on the person, depending on how tight they are, um, because you're going to be improving again that hydration between the fascia and the muscle and the fascia and the skin, and breaking down some of those adhesions that can form as a result of some of the consequences of menopause, perimenopause, someone who's not training too much. And then after that, just loading the body appropriately within the ranges of motion that the person can do, that is not painful. So again, if we're talking about that sharp stabbing pain, where it's like point specific, don't be going into that range because guess what? You're going to make it worse and more irritated and more inflamed.
Yeah.
So those would be probably some top three things to consider and to, encourage people to continue doing if they've ever had questions about it. A warm up is extremely important and just as important as the cool down for your fascia. And then after this is where we get into the biochemistry of what's going on in the body and how's that impacting the fascia. But I don't think that's a conversation for this call.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, the one thing that maybe you could send your client home to do, right? Like, I know you talk about a lot hydration,
Yeah.
right? And just more water, more water, more water. So I think that's probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like that one thing that you can do at home to really make a big difference.
Often, yeah. So hydration is it's actually more of a nuanced topic than just drinking more water because someone who drinks more water who's not eating enough, they're not going to really, they could potentially not be retaining that water, could be
Right.
passing through them and dehydrating them more.
Yeah.
Um, Water is necessary. We get water from fruits and vegetables, from if you have a protein shake, if you have tea that doesn't have too much caffeine in it. Um, but hydration is a big key thing in fascia. And when I talk about the lack of lubrication, sometimes it's a matter of dehydration, sometimes it's a matter of not eating and holding that hydration in the body.
Mm.
So sending your client home, maybe keeping track of how much water they're drinking. The basic level that you start with is half your body weight in ounces. If they're not there yet, maybe slowly get them up to that amount and then keep track. Are they eating or are they skipping meals? And again, are they skipping meals because they feel bloated? Maybe these self-conscious thoughts that come up because no matter how much time you say you got to eat, they may not listen. So offering them options like, okay, lower calorie if you want, but protein snacks, things that are going to not
Yeah.
only supply their fascia, but also their muscle. And foods that are not processed. So encouraging your client to actually cook their food at home and bring small snacks of things when they can. So, you know, eating is important, but again, this gets really nuanced when it comes to the person, the amount of body fat, their body mass index, which is not a number that we use very much anymore, but it's, just as a quick way to talk about if
Yes.
someone's trying to lose fat, we're going to approach this a little differently. And so the timing changes.
Yeah.
There's really no one size fits all. It really does have to do with the evaluation of the client and what's appropriate, and then taking the science and understanding how to manipulate that to help the patient no matter where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, hydration is good. So, I mean, unfortunately, I can't tell everyone to just go home and drink more water because it depends.
Yeah.
And you can't tell everyone to just go home and like keep eating all the time because it depends.
Yeah.
But you can, use your awareness. And if something's not working, that's when you want to refer. You're not going to be the jack of all trades. You want to refer to someone who can help you and work integratively with you.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like is probably like one of the last questions. Do you feel like there's a lot of people that understand this in the same capacity, like fascia specific? Because I know it's an upcoming trending, topic that people are starting to talk about, but it's not necessarily widely explored and known, especially in the
Mhm.
coaching world, right? So
Mhm.
is there a lot of people that you feel are qualified to really do this, or is it still you got to really do your research?
Yeah. So how I approach it, I think I've met three people, including myself, who understand it.
Yeah.
But in terms of fascia, being aware of fascia, based on the algorithm I'm stuck in,
Yeah.
it seems
You
like
see it every
everyone,
day.
yeah, I see it all the time. In my experience, not many of my clients, maybe they've heard the word, maybe they're foam rolling, but there's not a lot of in-depth knowledge. There's some very basic superficial level knowledge, which is good. Just so, we want to get it out there. Fascia exists. It's an organ in the body.
Mhm.
It does things. It contracts, it stretches, it moves. There's better ways and less optimal ways to take care of it, and it impacts your health. And especially for women over 40, as your estrogen decreases, the pain in your body you're feeling, the musculoskeletal pain is often more fascia. In fact,
Mhm.
when you get sore after a workout, they've shown that it's actually 90% your fascia that gets inflamed. So it is important to start reading up, and it takes time. You're not going to know everything all at once. Um, but this is why you take advantage of things like BLD education and
Yeah,
professionals that can come on and talk about this stuff.
yeah, yeah. That can help support you. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's been
Okay.
wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thanks, Jen.
much.
Oh, no problem. No problem. We will do this again. I hope, like, I
Yes.
think in the future, we're going to try and do a lot of these lives with a lot of the BLD members and just kind of get,
Get
get people,
questions on here.
yeah, get questions, get people talking about what they do and kind of helping people come out of their shell a little bit in terms of like what they offer and how they're different. So this is wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for joining.
No, no problem. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Talk to
Bye.
you soon. Bye.